Hey everybody, my name is Dorian Giordano, aka Chad, and you are watching the Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press. Today I am so happy to be joined by Dorian Giordano. How's it going?
It's going fantastic. I'm excited to kick things off and have some fun.
I'm excited to chat with you and we'll of course get into your role as Chad in Bet. But to start off, I know that you had goals of becoming a professional freestyle BMX rider before pursuing acting. So can you tell me about that career shift for you from athletics to the arts and the difficult decisions that you had to make?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it started when I was pretty young when I made the kind of transition between the two. So I've been BMXing since I was 8, so really young. And then I started doing it a little bit more, and then I kind of fell in love with it. I started getting kind of good at it, and then I decided that I wanted to take it somewhat seriously, as seriously as probably I would have been 10 at the time. A 10-year-old could take, something, a career, a sport, or whatever you want to call it. Um, so I started doing some little grassroots competitions and then got a little bit more serious. I started placing podiums and winning some, and then when I was 12, 13-ish, I started traveling around and competing in the junior series at FIS, Freestyle International Sports Extreme. I don't know what kind of order it is because it's actually French, but it's called FIS, so we'll just leave it at that. So I competed in a few FISs. I competed in FIS Edmonton, where I came second place, and then I competed in FIS China, where I came, I think it was eighth. Not my best placing, but I then the next year competed in FIS China when I was 14, and that was the last stop of the whole series. And I came first place in that. And since I competed in other stuff in the kind of FIS series, because they do a lot of stops around the world throughout the year, I think I had the most points in the junior division. So then I was technically the FIS Junior World Champion. So that's where it all started. But through BMX, there was kind of an open casting call audition for a commercial. And all of me and my friends heard about it at the skate park. And we all sent it in videos of our BMXing and stuff because we just like taking videos in general. So it was pretty easy to just send them some stuff that I already posted on Instagram. And then I actually ended up getting selected as one of the people for the commercial. So I booked the commercial. I went, I filmed it, I had a lot of fun. And, as I think I was probably around 14 at the time, this would have been the same time when I won Feast China. I was like, this is really fun. I don't have very much else going on in my 14-year-old life other than school. I think I could do a little bit more of these kind of stunt auditions, BMXing and stuff, just having fun. So me and my mom went together and we ended up finding an agent. And then we originally just wanted stunt work, commercial work. And then he said, "Hey, you're pretty personable. You have a very outgoing personality, as most people that live their lives at a skate park do. We're definitely not the most tame of society." So it was kind of a nice little outlet to let out all of my excess energy and personality. And I found that out through taking a couple of acting classes. And then I kind of fell in love with that equally as much as I did with BMX. And then there came a point when I was getting a little bit older, maybe 16, 17, where my BMX, if I wanted to go like professional and get like full on sponsorships from like brands that would pay for competitions and flying you out and stuff, I didn't know if I wanted to fully pursue acting or pursue BMX. But the problem was that if I got injured through BMX, then that would have put my acting career at stake. So I had to weigh out the pros and the cons. And I'd had about a decade in BMX at that point. I had my fun. I had a lot of really good memories made, and I'm still pretty good at bikes. If any of you guys have seen my Instagram, I still ride. Yesterday I was actually BMXing. I learned some new tricks, so I don't know when this is gonna come out, but I have a new post that's gonna be coming out soon. Um, but I decided that I'm gonna pursue acting instead of BMX because I see the longevity in acting as being more of like a long lasting and more sustainable career. One injury in BMX and that's kind of it. And I'm happy with my decision because I've made a lot of beautiful friends and experiences and memories in acting. And I mean, my career is just getting started, bet included. So I'm happy with the decision that I made, but I always do kind of wish, what if, BMX started going into the Olympics kind of at the time that I started siphoning myself out of the sport. So it would be really cool to see what would have happened if I stayed in the sport, but I'm pretty happy with my decision.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I feel like it's at this point in your life, like you mentioned, where you kind of had to make that decision. So there's always going to be the questions, but obviously, with the success of Bet and like you mentioned, your career in acting is just getting started. It can only go up from here. Can you tell me a bit more about what you took away from that chapter in your life as a competitive athlete? Like you mentioned, friends in the community, but what kind of skills did you gain that might be transferable to your acting career and in your life in general?
Yeah, I mean, learning from a young age that losing is a part of the game. I mean, you don't go into every competition expecting to win, and then even when you do win, it's beautiful. But when you don't, you have to accept that defeat and accept that it isn't necessarily your fault. You know, as long as you're putting all the effort that you can into learning your tricks, getting your lines down and stuff. It's funny because in BMX, when you do a run, it's called your line. But then in acting, you also have to get your lines down when you're memorizing a script. So don't get it confused. But getting your lines down for your competition in BMX and just making sure you do everything you can to do your best. And then that very well transfers over to acting in that you're going to do lots of auditions. You're not going to book all of them. You're not going to book most of them. You're not going to book almost any of them. So it's just accepting that that isn't always your fault and you have to do what's within your control. So you have to make sure that you always go in fully prepared. You know, you've done all your homework per se, and you're just putting your best foot forward so that even if it doesn't work out your way in the end, you know you did what you could. You learn from that experience and you kind of take it with you of what can I improve for the next thing and this and that. And then also, I did BMX for years and years, so there wasn't immediate gratification. You know, I had to practice for a long time to get where I got within that sport. And it's the same with acting. A lot of people want instant overnight success, and fingers crossed and knock on wood that it happens for everybody. I know I'd love it to happen to me, but you know, you have to go with the ebb and flow. The industry picks up, the industry slows down, and there's lots of things out of your control. So you kind of just have to find your ways to have fun within the industry and make the most of it when it does come around in your favor. And when it's not, just understand that, you know, things happen and say la vie, life is life, and just got to take things day by day, which is BMX and acting too.
Definitely a lot of like perseverance, that training mindset, accountability. And you mentioned China. You also got to travel to other cool places like France in your competitive career as well.
Yes, that was a lot of fun, and those are going to be lifelong memories. And even acting, I've got to travel. I went to Vancouver for Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is also on Netflix. And then, like we were talking about before this interview, I went to Montana to film Scraps, which was an incredibly beautiful place. So I'm definitely grateful for the opportunities that I've been presented.
I did want to ask, just because I saw a drum kit behind you, do you play drums as well? Are you a musician?
I do play a little bit of drums. I just picked it up recently, actually. Just this winter, I really got into drums. Actually, filming a Hallmark Christmas movie called A Dance in the Snow, I met this incredibly, incredibly cool person. I'm gonna name drop. I hope you don't mind. Vanessa Burgart, incredibly talented actress and incredibly talented drummer. She showed me one of her drum covers of a really, really cool band that she also introduced me to called Pierce the Veil. She played Bulls in the Bronx, an incredible drum cover, and it inspired me just the way that she has passion and love for drums. It just made me buy my own. So I bought them. I've played a little bit. It's pretty hard to get into. The barrier to entry is a little bit high, but I can play a couple songs and I'm progressively learning, just like acting and everything else. So
In your back cast, there's some other talented musicians as well. Clara is in a band, and Aviva also sings. So hopefully, if there's a season two, you guys can get together for a jam session, something like that.
yeah, I'd absolutely love that. I think I might want to be in the back, kind of have a like backing track playing over whatever I would be doing. But Clara and Aviva are so incredible with Claire's band Lola and then Aviva's own persona being Karis. Just both of their music is so incredible. I pale in comparison, so I'll give them credit where credit is due. But I'd like to think I'm trying my best.
Hey, there's some time for you to practice and get up to speed, but it's so nice to meet coworkers who really inspire you to make music. And Pierce the Veil's pretty hardcore, really cool band.
Yeah, I really, really like Pierce the Veil, and I think Claire likes a little bit of them too. I know we have some similar music tastes. I know she likes Title Fight a lot. I do too. I was actually at a Pierce the Veil concert last week. I'm glad that my interview was today and not right after, or else I wouldn't have had a voice. But yeah, music is fun, and they're really cool about it on set. They have a lot of experiences that they get to share, especially with Claire being in a band and just like her whole experience with Lola is incredible. I mean, Aviva's experiences with her being Karis and stuff is incredible too. I think she went on a tour and she just dropped her new music video, Garden. So go watch that.
Now, you've shared in interviews and on social media about being neurodivergent and growing up with ADHD in addition to some other health issues. And it's very vulnerable and brave to share your challenges with the world. How do you ensure that you're not defined by them, but also giving yourself grace and understanding on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean it's a big question and something that I think a lot of people are scared to answer or at least don't feel comfortable enough to allow themselves to be vulnerable, like you said. But I think it's a really beautiful thing, and it led me to where I am because through my experiences with neurodivergency and just my kind of at least earlier on when I was younger, as you get older, you adapt, you learn yourself, you figure out your surroundings, and you learn to live with it, and you learn to kind of embrace it as a gift in some senses. But when I was younger, I kind of didn't really understand it as much. So it was hard to kind of navigate all of the ups and downs that came along with it. But luckily, I did end up finding BMX as an outlet to kind of get all of that energy out. And everyone's really supportive and kind at the skate park. Even though you might think they're a little bit crass and kind of kooky, we all share one love. So you can really be yourself there. And then that led to BMX, which then led to acting. So, I accept that everything happens for a reason. And I'm really grateful that even though, despite the fact that I faced adversities and it might have been difficult in some places, it ended me up here in my life, which I'm more than grateful for. And then balancing life and, atypicalities and stuff it's hard sometimes, especially when you have to be really professional and really focused and quiet and calm and collected. Sometimes, your body wants to do otherwise, but sometimes you get beautiful experiences. Like I was talking about that movie, A Dance in the Snow. I was playing a selective mutist autistic boy, which I don't have selective mutism, but I do fall on the autism spectrum. So it definitely hit pretty close to home, and it was something that was really fun to kind of dive into, which I haven't done before. And I did that alongside of Vanessa Burgart, who was my autistic co-star, and she did an incredible job too. So you don't always have to shy away from it and kind of push it down. Sometimes you can let it be free and really embrace it with something as beautiful as that project. And I think that project as well brought a lot of light because Hallmark has a pretty big reach with their Christmas movies, and it was nice to give representation to kind of an underrepresented community with that. So, sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's a big undertaking, but then sometimes it's like I said, it's a gift almost.
It must be so refreshing to be able to tap into some of those personal parts of you as well and be able to, like you mentioned, share that with a wider audience. So thank you for sharing a part of your story. I think that it can only help people when what is previously considered a bit more of maybe a taboo subject is brought to the world and seen through actual like film and TV projects. Now we'll get into your role as Chad White in Bat, which is a series based off the Japanese manga Kakegurui. What can you share about your audition process and what you were told about the show and the character you were auditioning for?
Yeah, so I wasn't told anything. I'll start with that right off the bat. I wasn't told anything. It was kept undercover. They used a fake name for the characters, and then they used a fake like title for what the show was called. But I didn't know it was for Netflix. The audition process was really cool. I think I shared sides with Io and Hunter. I think we all got the same audition sides for the first round. Um, we had some really funny scenes for the audition. Some of the scenes actually ended up making it into the show. I don't know if I'm allowed to share what scenes those are or not because it was the audition. So I'll just leave it at that. Watch the show. You can take your guesses. But it was a really cool audition process. I mean, the audition in and of itself was very bet oriented and the stuff that we were doing in the audition is exactly what was going on in the show. So I definitely got a good tone of what the show was, but I had no idea that it was based off the anime or manga Kakegurui, which I had known of beforehand, which was really, really cool. And I'm really grateful that I ended up booking Chad and then getting to experience all of this because it was really fun, but I didn't originally know at first. anything about even Chad as a character, because the character that I was auditioning for, like I said, it was shared sides with Io and Hunter. So Chad wasn't even, in the landscape of auditions. So when I ended up booking Chad, I was like, this has nothing to do with the audition that I did. This should be pretty interesting. So it was definitely quite the convoluted process, but I'm really happy with how it turned out.
You have this affinity where you must look like a Chad because that was also the character that you had in Thanksgiving. So was it kind of funny to see that final character name and then you said, "Oh, like I literally just played a Chad in another project."
No, it was kind of comical to a sense. I mean, for the callback, I ended up submitting my demo reel, which had Chad from Thanksgiving as the very first clip of the demo reel. So I think that might have swayed in my favor. And then when I booked it, I went straight to Eli Roth and I told him, hey, I booked another character called Chad. I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to do Thanksgiving because I don't know how big or small of a role it played, but hey, when you book one Chad, it's pretty easy to book another one. So it was definitely funny. And yeah, it's definitely fun playing Chads. I have a little bit more range than that I'd like to add, but I'm not complaining with playing Chads. They're pretty fun.
Now, to my understanding, he is not based off of one specific character in the manga. So after you were cast, how much research did you do with the source material and what specific elements, if any, did you draw inspiration from?
Yeah, well, right away, I got myself a copy of the manga and I read all of it. I read it. I read like both of the chapters, like everything that is out to date. I read it and it was really nice, refreshing because I'd already heard about it and I'd watched the anime, and it was really nice to refresh by reading through the whole manga and really putting myself back into that position with kind of a new perspective. And it was really, really cool seeing kind of what we're coming from and taking stuff from the manga and implementing it into the live action. And then with regards to characters, I don't know how to pronounce it, so excuse if I mispronounce it, but Kaide Manyuda, that's he was on the student council. I think he was their treasury or just one of the characters that was kind of inspired Chad, at least in some of the ways that I was acting. He was very calm and concise and kind of to the point and didn't care about anything else. He had his goals in mind, and that's all that he cared about, which I think really comes into play later on in the season with Chad, specifically with regards to episode 8, especially when I'm doing all the chalkboard stuff with Runa. Spoiler alert. Watch the show and you'll understand what I'm saying. I think he takes lots of cues from Kaida for that kind of section of the show. And then another character that I took big inspiration from was June Kiwitari. Um, I took a lot of inspiration for him kind of being the dim-witted, woman-loving, egocentric, focused character for a lot of the earlier stuff in the show, specifically with regards to when I was Blake's boyfriend, and then after the fact when I had the two girls on my arm when I came out when it was Blake's funeral, and just kind of all of that persona and that kind of side of Chad. I'd like to think that I took some inspiration from June in that because he had some pretty funny moments in the manga that I think kind of crossed over with some moments that Chad had too.
It's kind of interesting to be able to take parts of these different characters, but also, make it your own and bring something new. Are there any other fictional characters or performances that informed you and helped you shape Chad?
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of movies. I watch a lot of anime. I read a decent amount of manga. I'll admit that I do watch a little bit more anime than I read manga, but I think just the name Chad in and of itself is more than enough inspiration for what the character should be. And I think despite some characters maybe not being named Chad, everyone can recognize when there is a Chad in a movie or a manga or an anime. You kind of pick up the vibes of what that character is. So I'm not sure if there's a specific character, but I think most shows that have most typical archetypes always have that Chad, and you can kind of always pick it up. So I guess it came from everywhere because there's lots of Chads out there.
That's so well said. And I know you mentioned being an anime fan, so a bit off topic, but what is your all-time favorite anime?
This is a really hard question because there's too many good animes, and it kind of depends on what kind of anime you want. If you're thinking like psychological thriller versus shonen versus slice of life. There's all different kinds of animes, but I think an anime that this is gonna sound a little bit basic, and I'll give you a cooler answer later. But I think an anime that I can always go back to is Naruto. It was one of the first animes I watched. It's really long. I think it's without filler because shoot me now, I skip filler. There's too many episodes to watch it all. I think there's 500 episodes between Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. There's just so many good fights, and it's such a like base core anime that so many things are inspired by and take inspiration from and pay homage to, and it's a really good anime, and the fights are just so refined, and the plot and the lore is so good and in depth, and I really really like it. Some newer ones that have come out that I really like. I really like Chainsaw Man. I think a new season is coming out this year, if I'm not mistaken. So that should be fun to watch. And then your basic ones, Demon Slayer, JJK, stuff like that. Oh, and then while I'm here, I'll pay homage to Death Note, something that isn't directly related to Bet or Kakegurui, but it kind of has similar vibes in that it's a very dark backstory, but it's very fun and fast and high stakes. And instead of gambling with money, you're gambling with lives, which we do a little bit in bet.
That's a really good kind of comparison. And it does kind of take a similar aesthetic, like you mentioned, although it's not really like based off of that story. Those are some good options. I can tell how passionate you are about anime. So I do hope you get to, be part of more of these kind of projects or adaptations in the future. Going back to Chad, can you share some insight into any backstory or childhood you created for him or discussed with others and how that impacted the Chad that we meet in the present day?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the backstory and kind of basis of Chad started really coming later in the season when I theorized with co-stars and I got a better grasp of where the story was going and kind of a better idea of who Chad was. Because earlier on, I mean, in episode 1 and 2, I'm not in it too much. I'm mostly lingering in the back, kind of hovering as a student council, overwhelming demon or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if I'd say Chad's a demon, but um yeah, I definitely think it was developed later on when Chad started having more prevalence in the show. And I'd like to think that even though he has a very egotistical, women centric, money centric persona that he leads with, I think that stems from a lot of pain and vulnerability in his life. And a lot of things that I want to touch on kind of later if the show develops a little bit more, wink, wink, that I have some ideas for. But I think a lot of his character idiosyncrasies and stuff come from an underlying vulnerability of lack of substance and lack of external attention and love in his life that he needs to fulfill with external validation from money and peers and women, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And that kind of leads into my next question, which you kind of alluded to, which is Chad being very drawn to the idea of intimacy in the physical body. And aside from the girls, the women, we can see that his physique is very important to him. So, did you kind of enjoy playing into that key trait of your character? And like you mentioned, how that kind of came to be, developing a bit more of a backstory to that.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely fun. A time to show off the hard work with acting is always appreciated. And then with acting comes the body. And there's a lot of hard work that goes into that too. So it's definitely nice getting to showcase some of the hard work that goes into acting, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I do think that Chad's body and physique plays a big role in his personality. I mean, he's very egotistical and self-centered. So what better way to complement that by having a great physique too? I definitely stepped it up a little bit before shooting started so that I could make sure that I could fully embrace Chad in that sense. And yeah, I definitely think that, Chad resonates with his body and lets that be a leading point in his character, despite the fact that we have, big Letterman jackets and suits and blazers and stuff. Once that all comes off, Chad has a little bit of something to work with.
Unfortunately, even with, all that working out, it didn't seem to help him in a match with Ryan during the capture the house flag. I saw the behind the scenes videos of you and Io kind of grappling on the mats during rehearsals. So how fun was that to shoot with him?
Oh my God. I think we did that 2 or 3 times and it was just hilarious. It was like every single person was trying not to just break out into laughter, despite the fact that we were very angry on scene. We were having an absolute blast behind the scenes. We were both really excited when we first went through the table read and saw and got the scripts and saw that that scene was going to happen. And I'd like to add that Io is much taller than me. Well, Io, aka Ryan, is much taller than Chad, and that's the only reason why he won the fight. Pound for pound, Chad would take anybody that comes at him.
He just needs a bit of a shorter opponent. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I think that would make a more even fight.
In your opinion, what are Chad's primary intentions and goals? Like, what does he see as his future after St. Dominic's, and what does he maybe hope to accomplish in his life?
I think it's left up to a little bit of ambiguity with that, and wink, wink. If and when season two happens, we kind of dive into that more. But I'd like to think that Chad's main goals are just money and wealth to, like I said, overcompensate for that lack of external, love and affection that he might have shared in life. And then if and when Chad comes to the realization that that is something that, he is overcompensating for and would like to deal with and would like to kind of mend those wounds that he has inside, I think despite his current knowledge in the future, once he graduates from St. Don's, I think he'd like to live a more modest life, just with somebody that shows him the love and affection that he may or may not have gotten when he was younger, and kind of disregards the need for all of that external validation and gives him a sense of security in himself and in his surroundings that he didn't really get when he was younger.
We do get a sense that he's not exactly maybe what we saw him as earlier on in the season. So we'll talk about that moment in episode 8 later on. But Chad is dating Blake at the time of her passing. He meets her stepfather, Raymond Rowe, in episode 4, has some awkward interactions there. In your opinion, what is the basis of their relationship? Like, what did he like about her? How long have they been going out for? Is it genuine?
Yeah, I think as much as Chad probably got pitted as, the ladies' man and kind of like all about the next thing, this and that and this and that. I think he did have a real soft spot for Blake. I was pretty excited to meet her dad in that scene, and I may have been playing it up a little bit because of the two lovely ladies on each of my elbows when she died, but I think I was genuinely hurt. And especially because in the earlier episodes before Blake's passing, you can see that I'm with her at all times with all of the gambling stuff that's going on in the backgrounds. You can always see me and her hanging out. We're always together. So I think the relationship was one that I actually really appreciated, and I liked that Blake was a little bit similar to me. I mean, you can see her interactions with Yumeko. She's the boss. She's a little bit self-centered. She's the most important. And then you can see her vulnerability shine through with regards to her dad and her being nervous about her bass clarinet recital and stuff. But I definitely think she shares a lot of her personality similarities with me, not necessarily the bad ones, maybe some. And I think that's where we find a lot of common ground, and that's what I like about her.
Did you and Emma ever talk about like how long you think they've been going out for when we meet them?
I don't think we ever talked about hard timelines, but I think we're under the assumption that we were both pretty comfortable with each other, and we had been together for a while. I mean, everybody kind of knew around us. It wasn't like a shock in our surroundings, so I'd imagine it was something that was pretty cemented, especially given the fact that I'm in the student council and Emma was kind of comfortable with all of the other student council members. It's pretty hard to get comfortable with student council members, especially given the nature of how some of them are. So if she was comfortable, I'd imagine we weren't anything remotely new.
I wish we got to see more of Emma as Blake. I mean, she was fantastic in what we did get to see her in. And, you mentioned Chad. He doesn't seem to be taking the loss too hard. Agree or disagree with the statement? Or is it like, where do you think his headspace is at? Is it just a lot of overcompensating in that immediate aftermath?
I think it's exactly that. Overcompensating in the immediate aftermath is a great way to put it. I think there definitely is still a place in my mind and in my heart for where Blake was. I think it got filled pretty fast, but I think it's definitely still there, and I still think about her from time to time. So who knows? Maybe in wink wink, I'm gonna be doing this a lot throughout the interview. Season 2, there's gonna be a moment where I flash back and I miss Blake and I love her so much, but we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things, especially for Chad as someone who seems a bit more go with the flow, that things could come to a head or hit him more later on, as maybe
Yeah.
something comes up and it's a memory that the two did together, something like that. In your eyes, how has Chad been feeling with student council losing its power and predictability with Yumiko's arrival? Like, what is his allegiance to Kira and the other council members, and how does that kind of shift throughout season one?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely noticed the difference. You can see in the scenes that I'm in that I'm disappointed in the results and the outcomes, especially when Suki gets, ixnayed from the school and from the student council and from life, some believe. I'm definitely disappointed in that. You can see the reactions on my face. And I definitely have a mutual understanding that I have to respect Kira and she's the boss. I don't know if I have an utmost respect for her, as can be seen in some of the scenes where I poke a little bit of fun at her. But when I'm face to face with her, I take her very seriously. I definitely respect my other student council members. I think we have a very love hate relationship in a beautiful way. You can see me, Runa, and Dory kind of have a Three Musketeers vibe going on where when we're in scenes together, it's very camaraderie, sibling fun, and friendship and playfulness and threats. Um, and it's a lot of fun. And I think we all kind of have the same understanding and respect towards Kira that it's probably best to just stay afraid of her. And we all kind of bond over that.
I love the scenes that the three of you shared, like when they're kind of teasing each other when Chad is imitating Kira. Of course, the fish bowl. Chad had that that little moment as well. It does seem like he is kind of a bit of a scapegoat, always bordering top 10, as Kira also alludes to. Like he's one game away from being knocked out at some point in the season. Is there anything specific you remember from filming the Met Gala scenes, and how was it to get fitted with a bit more of a fancier suit for that episode?
Yeah, the Bat Gala was quite the time of show to be filmed. I mean, everybody's gonna remember that for a long time coming. We'll start with the suits and then expand into the whole, ambiance and vibes of everything. But the suit was really, really fun to get done. I had to go in for I think three different fittings to get it fitted perfectly, tailored to my exact body. Hey, I gotta watch my weight. If I gain 5 pounds, the suit's not gonna fit me anymore. So it was really well fitting. It was really cool. I really liked the look of it, and it actually came straight from Italy, which is cool because I'm Italian. So it came right from Italy and it had really, really fancy fabric and it was really expensive. I'm not going to share how much it cost, but that's how many digits. So it was a pretty expensive suit and I had to be very careful to not damage it because there was only one. There was no repeats of it. And then with regards to the whole Met Gala in and of itself, it was really, really fun to shoot. It was a little bit weird behind the scenes because there was a lot of people. It was very, very hot on set, and there was a lot of smoke in the air. So between takes, everyone was kind of a little bit delirious and a little bit lethargic. So it was quite the thing to film. I mean, we were all in very thick, multi-layered suits. I can't even imagine how Ryan Sutherland was feeling with his giant dead mouse-esque mask. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know if Dead Mouse's name is copyrighted, but similar vibes. I don't know. Name drop, but it was really, really cool to film because there was a lot going on. There was a lot of really, really cool lights. The music was fun, and it was a memorable experience for sure. Oh, and we got to watch those two dancers behind the curtain live. I mean, Miku and Io, they were doing the dancing for sure. But we got to watch them live as it was happening, and all of our reactions to the dancing was authentic because it was really good dancing.
It's okay. I spoke with Io, and he mentioned that while they did like rehearse the dance, a lot of the
Okay.
fancier silhouettes were like the dance stunt doubles. But it looked incredible, and I can imagine it was very overstimulating, though. Like you mentioned, the haze, the music, the amount of people, but I think it was pulled off really well. Too bad you didn't get to keep the suit, but I understand it was a big ticket item. How was the house pet hunt to film in episode 7 in the forest?
Wow. This is a whole like oh my I could go on about episode 7 for hours, but I'll keep it short and concise for the viewers' sake. I tend to ramble, so I'm gonna try my best not to. It was a lot of fun. There were a lot of mosquitoes. There was a lot going on. There were absolutely hilarious scenes. There was multiple shoots going on at the same time because of how big the forest was. So you couldn't always watch your other co-stars, but when you could, specifically Rami and Ryan, aka Suki and Rex, it was absolutely hilarious. There was a lot of really, really fun scenes, and I remember specifically Craig, our director for that block. He was really passionate about my kind of hand signals for one of the scenes with my house pet Lassie, or Kiki. I said her name. I hope you're okay with that. I imagine you are. That was really, really fun. That was kind of improv in doing the hand signals, including the bird sound. I didn't know I could do that till that day, so that was fun. And there was a lot going on, and it was very, very playful. There wasn't a lot of lines, and there was a lot of movement, which is always the most fun.
Definitely making the most use of the space that you're in, but it's fun to know some of those like the bird calls were improv because you're always trying to find new ways to like make it fun and incorporate things into your character, what makes them stand out, especially during this like high stakes game. And it was the first time we see Chad really interact with his house pet, with Lassie. So what do you think his treatment is of her, considering we don't see her at Chad's beck and call earlier in the season?
Yeah, I mean, she was a great actor. I'd like to add shout out to Kiara Osborne. She did fantastic and was really, really fun as my house pet. I think if I could chalk it up to a reason why she wasn't exactly brought to light in the first section of the show, is because I don't think it matches Chad's facade or vibe, and that he's this like high value, upper echelon of individual. And I don't think a house pet following him around inherently suits that. I mean, Kira's house pets aren't always following her around. They're only there for her convenience. And I think that's kind of the same way with Chad, in that I only have her there when I need her there. Otherwise, I don't want her clouding my spotlight. God forbid people, all the paparazzi are taking pictures of Chad. She can't be in it. But when she came, there was definitely a feeling of familiarity. She's my go-to house pet. She's reliable. She's dependable. I don't treat her, is inherently degrading as some of the other house pets do get treated. And I think that's because she's good at what she does, and I know what she's good at, and I use her for that.
That's a really good assessment on how you put it. Like he doesn't want her clouding his spotlight. And just going back to the house pet hunt, like you mentioned, watching Ryan and Rami, and they were so funny. And I love the beginning moment when the house pets are barking at each other and they're like, control your house pet. And again, you see like that love-hate relationship where it's just like, these characters, they're so funny and dynamic, and we get to see something new each episode. Now, Chad plays strip poker with Yumeko. In episode 8, ends up locked in a room, claustrophobic, with her and her group. So, how was it for you to interact with these characters, with these other actors who you previously only spent time with in these larger group settings?
It was definitely fun. I'm really, really grateful that I got to have those kind of moments with those characters because they're incredible actors, and the characters are really, really fun and play a huge part in the show. So it was really nice getting my own moment with them. It was a lot of fun. It was really weird because I kind of developed this whole aura for Chad. I mean, the strip poker section was really easy to do. That is like bare bones, exactly what Chad is like. That's his element. One of my favorite moments from the whole show is when Io comes in and he's like, strip poker. I'm gonna do a really bad British accent because if I'm doing Io, I might as well embody him. Strip poker. Oh, it looks like you're getting rode. And then Miku or Yumiko says, no, he hasn't lost a hand. And I say, it's true. I came in like this. I think Chad coming into strip poker in socks, boxers, and a shirt is like the poster model thing of what Chad would do. So that was incredibly fun and incredibly easy to do. When I had a panic attack and I was claustrophobic, that was very fun and interesting and new, and something that I never got to experience earlier on in the show. And my interaction with Michael, him kind of seeing that I'm having a panic attack, I think that might have got cut from the show, but there was a moment where Michael was like, are you okay? And I'm like, don't touch me. Or I think I might have said that to Io. Nonetheless, my interactions with the characters in that incredibly vulnerable, not so Chad state was really, really fun and new. And I'm glad that if I got to have interactions with the characters, it was in something as zany and crazy as claustrophobic and strip poker in the same 5 minutes.
You really got to see that range of your character in that brief amount of time. But of course, they do escape into the house pet passageway. And it's revealed at the Kakegurui Club a bit later on that Chad has an eidetic memory, which comes as a surprise to many. So, what depth did this add to your character? And was it fun to explore this side of him? Like, when did you find out about this? Was it when you were preparing and reading the scripts for the episode?
Yeah, I think it was in that block. I mean, it was hinted earlier on, if you can see by when Yumeko was asking or checking her phone to see how long was left until the end of the semester, and I just riled straight off the amount of time that was left until the semester ended because I just memorized it, and I knew because of my eidetic memory. And then later on in that same scene, when I knew the exact square footage of the room that we were in, it was hinted on a little bit earlier, but it really came into full effect, like you said, within the Kakegurui Club when the power went out because of a fun little moment between Michael and a little beaver who has a really, really cool reveal of who he is. So watch the show, and I think you'll enjoy that scene. But it was really cool to get to know about my eidetic memory, and I think I'm gonna do it again. Wink, wink, hint, hint. In season two, I think that's gonna get touched upon a lot. And Chad being in fifth place in on the rankings, fifth or sixth, I think he has, I think, $116,000, which is a lot of money. And I'd like to think that that is all because of my own specific gambling game that I'm good at, which has to do with my eidetic memory. So I think the school all knows about my eidetic memory to a certain degree, at least the people that I've absolutely destroyed in gambling. But, Michael and Yumiko and the other people, when they come into the Kakegurui Club, I think they learn about it, and it's something really interesting that I got to touch on. And it was really fast from when I found out that I had it to when I put it into place for writing down all of that stuff on the chalkboard. When the power went out, it was really fun to do. I kind of rambled. I said I ramble earlier. What exactly was your question?
I think you answered it. It was just like how fun was it to explore this
Okay.
new side of him? And with a dialogue with a bunch of numbers, is that very easy for you to do and rehearse and get to actually film, or is it a bit more difficult when it has to do with like a lot of like a bit of a numbers game?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, as Dorian Giordano, have a particular infatuation with numbers. Prior to pursuing my acting career full time and committing to that path, I was enrolled in a university here called McMaster for automotive engineering. So I am particularly fond of numbers. I love cars. There's lots of numbers in cars with a lot of different things that have to do with them. I really like numbers in and of itself. So actually getting to memorize all of those numbers and stuff wasn't as difficult as you might think. However, having to recite them really, really fast without stumbling over my tongue, that was the hard part because Chad is an absolute wizard with that stuff. And there was a lot of going on that I had to overcome.
A bit of a tongue twister, but hey, you got it done. And with Chad, he's not as useless as the impression he gives off. So, like you mentioned, it would be very exciting to explore this in future seasons, maybe see the games that he actually gets to play. Can you take me through the key events of the school board retreat from Chad's perspective and how you think he felt about all of it, including the blackjack game between Yumiko and Kira strangling Riri if Chad was there in that scene, and of course the big murder at the end.
Yes. So the school retreat was really, really fun. Chad can be seen for a lot of it with a drink in his hand. So we're going to assume for everything he's a little bit tipsy. Don't drink if you're underage, people. I'm not underage. I'm 22 years old. I can drink everywhere in the world, and Chad probably can too. I don't know. But he was a little bit tipsy for all of it. So let's go into it assuming that. And then for the big blackjack game, given the fact that I was tipsy, I think I found it very comical and just so out of proportion. I've never seen Kira gamble, let alone gamble with this stake or at this level of unprofessionalism. She's losing. When has Kira ever lost? And then on top of that, she's going crazy, splashing water on her face. I don't know that she's poisoned. I just think she's nuts. So this is really funny for me I don't like Kira sometimes because Kira doesn't like Chad sometimes. So I think to a certain degree, I'm a little bit pleased that I'm seeing her in actually a position that she's put me in so many times for once. But at the end of the day, I do obviously want her to win because I have a certain level of reservations towards the student council. But I think Chad had a really, really fun time watching it. Even though some people were really, really stressed out, I think Chad was just having a really good time. He had his popcorn in his hand, except his popcorn was a whiskey, and I think he was just enjoying the show. And then I don't think that he was present for Kira and Riri's kind of interaction. Interaction's one way of putting it. There was a scene that was cut out, but Chad, as well as a lot of the other student council members, were in the back, and we were all eating food and sandwiches. Except I was already there, and then everybody left, and I was still there. So I'd like to think I was just munching on hors d'oeuvres and sandwiches in the back. That's where I was during the fight scene, and I'm gonna keep it there. With regards to the rest of it, I think Chad was just having a really fun time. There was a scene where he was talking to Yumeko. He didn't really care about that. He just wanted to kind of shoot the sugar honey iced tea with everybody. I think that was his main objective there.
Were you around in the scene where Kira comes down and says that Gabriel is dead?
Yes, I was. And I think that snapped me out of my soberness because I was expecting some stuff to go down tonight. Maybe somebody gets kicked out of the school. Maybe there's a divorce. I didn't expect somebody to die like 10 feet above my head. So when this happens, this is very, very shocking information. And I think you can see on the reaction of my face and Dory's face and Suki's face, because we're all together for that scene next to the pillar beside the stairs, we're all very, very shocked, and we don't know what the heck is going on. And there's a lot of stuff to process in that moment, especially being a little bit tipsy.
Like you mentioned, it's something where you might consider other things to happen. Someone might have to leave St. Dom's, but murder is like the next level. And of course, earlier in the season, it's kind of referenced that Kira can make people disappear. And obviously, Blake passed away and her stepfather as well. But having this happen like in this retreat where you kind of might know everyone in the room is something else.
Yeah, it was definitely quite the shocking series of events. And yes, by all means, it's not that I was unaware that death is something that can occur. I mean, Blake blew up and Suki got ixnayed. Maybe, who knows? We'll see. Or if you've watched the show, you already know the answer to that. So death by all means wasn't a foreign topic, but I didn't think it would happen to somebody at the party that night. I thought that's the one time where we could have a peaceful student council get together.
And Chad was definitely enjoying himself beforehand. So excited to see the ramifications of that in the future. Fingers crossed. How was it working with your cast? Is there a favorite memory or two that you can share from
Oh,
filming on and off set, just being together?
yeah. Wow, that's a hard question. Is there a favorite memory? There's about 1,000 memories that I have, as well as zero, because the moment anyone asks that question, you instantly form a blank. A really fun memory that I can remember is when we were outside filming episode 3, and we had the scene where we were talking about Yumiko and kind of her prevalence in the show. It might have been episode 4. I might be a really, really bad cast member right now. But whichever episode it was, where we're outside on the kind of hill in front of the school in the main section, as we were filming, between takes, there was a raccoon up on a window outside that had climbed up the vines. And if you go to my Instagram, you can see a post that has everybody pointing. And then the next slide, it's a photo of the raccoon. That was a really funny memory because there was a little guy. He didn't sign any NDAs. He just came on set, watched it with us without being allowed to. And it was a really, really funny moment. There's a lot of really good moments on that scene, or on that set, sorry.
I can tell though, just looking at the behind the scenes that everyone's been sharing, that you all had such a fun time. And I spoke with Laura, who, of course, plays Runa, and she said about you that you are so funny and open to trying new things and scenes, good heart, and you were her designated lollipop opener as well. So, how much fun was it to work with, I'll say specifically Laura and Aviva, because, like you mentioned, it was kind of like a Three Musketeers vibe that you gave off, especially in a lot of those student council scenes.
Oh my gosh, I can't give enough praise to both of my co-stars. Aviva and Laura, and they absolutely killed Runa and Dory. I couldn't imagine anybody else that could have been cast better for the characters. With Aviva, it was so fun because she really embraced her character to the moon, and she was so wacky and zany, but she played it so authentically, which is not what she's like. She's very fun, she's very personable, but she's not psycho murder. But in the show, she plays a fantastic psycho murder, and every scene that she was in, she just grabbed it by the reins and did her absolute best job, and it came out amazing. And her character is so fun to work with. The camaraderie that we have, she kept up all of her craziness through every single interaction we have, whether it be her threatening to kill me or this or that, or the scene where we have to go in line to get our cards for the house wars, and then I shove her down and I go, and then her threatening to me not call her crazy again or else adverse reactions are going to occur. That was incredibly fun to do scenes like that with her, and she had a really fun camaraderie with Chad. And then Runa, oh my goodness. Every single time Laura had to have a lollipop in one of her scenes and she needed a new one, and I was even remotely around, I was opening it. She has these really, really cool nails, which you can see in the show, so she couldn't open the lollipops. I opened every single lollipop for her. The moment that was in the show where she shoves the lollipop in my mouth was originally not supposed to be in the show. If you see the TikTok that I'm in with Ryan and her, you can Ryan the character Io, that with Io and her, and you see her shove the lollipop in my mouth. That was completely spontaneous when she did it. I was not expecting that at all whatsoever, and it was so great that we kept it in the show. The interactions between me and her are so big brother or big sister little brother every single time. It was hilarious. There was this one moment that I think they might have cut where I go to touch her bag and she smacks my hand. There's the other moment where I go to give her knuckles and she smacks my hand. Just the camaraderie and relationship that we have between the two characters is so funny.
I can definitely see a bit of that big sister, little brother vibe. I can tell who's a bit more maybe powerful in the dynamics, considering she is a loan shark and has like a human beaver at her disposal. But it was so fun to kind of explore those relationships, and hopefully they get to maybe deepen a little as well. How was it working with your showrunner Simon Barry and his creative vision for the show? Like, was it very collaborative between Simon and your other directors that you had as well?
Every single director on that show is absolutely incredible. Shoutouts to Joyce, shoutouts to Craig, shoutouts to Simon, shoutouts to Jackie. They were all so amazing and wonderful to work with. Specifically with regards to Simon, he is one of the most talented and amazing visionaries I've ever gotten to work with, and it was such a pleasure and privilege to get to share the same production as with someone like him. The amount of passion that he had for the show Bet and for the original source material being Kakegurui, and the amount that he brought to it, the passion that he had when talking to Netflix, when talking to Boat Rocker, when talking to all of cast, crew, all of my co-stars. It was so passionate and incredible, and he just loved to be there. He loved every single scene. There was not a single moment where he was stressed out or worried or didn't know what was going on. He was a man on a mission with a purpose, and he did everything so amazing and just fluidly. Like there was no confusion with what he wanted. He just knew exactly what he wanted the show to be. And I'm so happy we had somebody like that to bring this to fruition, because I think his vision was met so well. And the show is as good as it is because his vision was what it was. He was incredibly nice working with all of us. He let us bring our own kind of experiences and personalities and idiosyncrasies to each character, and he gave us a lot of free will while still keeping his vision alive. And he let all of us feel really comfortable. He made his way to go out of his way and get with us behind the scenes, offset, just hang out. All of us had so much fun together, just whether it's going to restaurants or going out or doing cast group activities and stuff. He facilitated us becoming such a family so quick, so fast. And I think that's such a big proponent of what made the show so good.
That's so wonderful to hear. And you mentioned the cast getting together for meals. Could that be another one of your favorite memories if
Yeah,
you
we got
remember?
together for a lot of meals. I think one of the most fun memories that was offset was when we went to the Toronto beach together and we brought a picnic. we went a little bit late. We went when it was sunset, and then it got dark. But we figured we're all having a good time. We might as well stay here. And then randomly beside us, fireworks started going off just because. So there's all of us cast. We all probably had worked like a 12-hour day that day or something. So we're all a little bit sleep deprived and delirious. And then fireworks start going off. We're all doing random dances and stuff. Onwin's by the shore picking up rocks. It was a really, really fun experience. And we had a really, really good time that night. We all got sand in our shoes and it was great. So that was another really good memory of all of us on the beach.
Those are kind of like the core memories that make up your experiences as well that you remember, like the time you had together. You kind of touched on this a bit throughout, but if you could summarize, if renewed for a second season, what would you like to explore with Chad? And are there any other specific storylines that you would be excited to see more of as like a fan and a viewer yourself?
Yeah, if I have the opportunity to really dive into Chad and have fun with the character and have a say in what goes on. Number one, rad. You guys have already been saying it. I'm gonna solidify it. Rad. Rad is Chad and Runa. Rad. We need more interactions. I want to be in more scenes with her. She is so much fun to work with. We already talked about this earlier, and I'm glad he gave me the floor with that. Such an incredible actor, such a fun character. I want more moments with Runa. I don't care how tame or how crazy it is. I want more moments with Runa. But with regards to Chad specifically, I really want to touch on his upbringing and his familial situation because I think that stems a lot of the reason with where Chad gets his money from and a lot of the reason why Chad resonates with his money so much. Whether that be something along the lines of having multiple sets of parents, one being poor, one being rich, Chad coming from somewhere and then it flipping the switch with a different family member, like going to his grandparents or something like that. I don't know what I would want it to be. I have ideas and I've been talking to the writers who are absolutely incredible, by the way. Shout outs to all the writers, especially Kurt, because Kurt's the reason that I got the crap beat out of me. Thank you. But there's definitely a lot of moments that I want to touch on with regards to Chad's childhood and kind of what made him the way he is and his infatuation with money so aggressive.
And any other storylines for other characters?
I think it would be really cool if Chad could have had some interactions with Wendy. I think that would be a curveball and nobody would be expecting it for Chad to find out that Wendy is Riri and put two and two together and have interactions with her, but I think that could be fun. And then just overall more scenes with Io as Ryan, maybe not so aggressive ones, maybe a little bit more friendly. We'll see. Maybe we'll keep it up. Who knows? Um, with Yumiko specifically, because it was almost like leaving me starstruck, and I'm sure some of my co-stars might agree that she's such an incredible, incredible actor that just being in her presence and watching her in scenes and sharing the floor with her is like, wow, this is true just talent and dedication to the craft. And I feel privileged every single time I get to be in a scene with her. I get to watch her working because it's like a marvel of her talents, just seeing her take the floor and being so amazing with it. So any more scenes that I get with Yumiko would be incredible because she's such an amazing actor and so great to work with.
And it's so cool to see that progression that she had from Kate on Netflix to now in Bet. And you mentioned Wendy. I think that that was one of the biggest mysteries of season one because I noticed that she was not credited, Anma was not credited as that character. But a lot of people have been putting two and two together that it's the same person. So we don't quite know the connection if they're supposed to be separate characters or if there is this kind of, second personality to Riri that viewers just aren't privy to yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not by any means confirming. Don't listen to Chad. Chad likes women and money. He doesn't really care about anything else. And Chad likes guys too, especially if there's a $5,000 bet on the line. Chad will keep his socks on and do what he has to do. But I'm not by any means confirming that Riri is Wendy, but specifically with Wendy and her interactions that she's had with Mary and with Yumiko, I think she's a really, really fun person to work with, and it looks like a lot of fun to be in scenes with her, especially with the kind of secrecy house pet behind the scenes stuff that's going on. I think if Chad gets thrown into that world, maybe not even by his will, I think could be a cool thing too. That would be a really interesting interaction because Chad's used to being surrounded by the upper echelon and the elite and the rich snobby of the world. So if he gets thrown into the house pet sector of everything, I think it could be a wake up call and maybe lead Chad somewhere or just add to his narcissism. We'll see.
You're like, I'm hoping that there's a bit more growth there, maybe changing how he'll interact in the future. But it's so awesome to hear what you hope, and you also have your own ideas. Now that the show's been out for almost 3 weeks, how has the response been? Like, what messages have you received or been seeing online, and what has that meant to you?
Thank you to everybody, to all of the fans, to all of the supporters, to everybody that's made the show what it is now, for watching, for telling your friends. We've had the most incredible responses from everybody. So many people love the show. So many people are passionate. So many people are asking for season two. Keep asking for season two. Tag Netflix in your comments. Um, I couldn't be more happy with it. I mean, it was a big I don't want to say mystery because we were all really comfortable with the quality of the show and the performances that we did, and we were all really happy with how it turned out. But you never know how fans are going to respond, especially having such a strong fan base from the manga and the anime. We didn't know how they were going to react to it, and especially because it wasn't a one-to-one adaptation like something like Avatar: The Last Airbender was. It was based off of and kind of brought its own spin to the story. So we didn't know how they were going to react, but they've absolutely loved it. The fans have said nothing but kind words and showed love and admiration for the characters and the show and all of our little moments. And there's so many cool edits and fan art of everybody in the cast, and I can't thank the fans enough. I mean, I think us as a cast have been trying our absolute best to be as interactive as possible with all the fans. We love you guys, and we're not like unattainable. We're not some celebrities or anything. We're all just like you. We're just regular people. You just happen to see our job on your TVs. So please keep reaching out to us. Keep tagging us in posts. Keep commenting on our stuff. We'll be responding to absolutely everything that we can because we love you guys, and the love and support that you're showing us is absolutely not going unnoticed. We're seeing all of it.
How has the response from friends and family been, like now that they've been able to see you in action on screen?
I've had some mixed responses. All of them have been positive. By all means, I'd like to say that they've all been really happy with me and the successes in my career and the advancements in my journey in the industry. But there's been some very funny, responses to stuff that's going on, especially being like, wow, your character is nothing like you. And then some responses saying, wow, your character is exactly like you.
That's when you know, like some people are maybe misunderstanding your intentions and how your real personality.
I mean, I definitely brought a little bit of myself to chat, I'd like to admit. A little bit more than I'd like to admit as well. But yeah, I've been getting really good responses. They definitely think it's quite the crazy show, and I have quite the funny, fun character. But a lot of them have been very cognizant of all of the humorous intentions behind everything and not taking it too seriously. And they all think that I have a really funny character, and the show is really, really fun and wacky and zany. And yeah, they're a little bit surprised by what it was because going into it, you think, oh, it's just a regular kind of teen drama. No, it's pretty nuts. So they were definitely a little bit surprised by that. But once I kind of got used to it, they loved Chad. Even if they might not have liked Chad, they loved Chad.
Of course, and you have to support, they have to support Dorian. You kind of just touched on this briefly, but coming from this world, this popular, beloved manga, it would draw the attention of many. You being a big anime fan, you must know about like the fan bases already. So, how was that mindset during filming, like wanting to do the source material justice, but also bringing something new to these characters and telling your own story, especially with Chad being this maybe a bit more of a hybrid between manga characters.
Yeah, I was actually really excited to answer this question. So, with regards to the source material, I think some shows have done it really, really, really good, and some shows have taken their own spin on things to fans' dismay. With Bet, it was hard because everybody heard, oh, this has to do with Kakegurui. It's going to be the same thing. And it was hard to kind of get the point across that this is based off of the source material. It's not a one-to-one recreation of the source material. So there was definitely some difficulties navigating that. However, I was talking about this earlier, and I'd like to pay homage to Miku for being such an incredibly talented actress. She brought such an authentic, amazing, you know, I don't even know how to begin to explain it. She did it so great. I think she was the perfect and epitome of the physical embodiment of what Yumiko could have been for the anime. I'm sorry, for the live action. And I think her attention to detail, her ability to encapsulate everything that the character had inside of the manga in real life and bring everything that she did was probably our biggest and most important thing to keeping true to the source material. We still kept in a lot of the other, themes and vibes of the show, as well as having characters like Runa, having the one-to-one recreation of the fan favorite onesie that she had. But I think a lot of the staying true to the source material had to do with Yumiko being so authentically accurate to the source material and her doing such an amazing job at bringing that to life. With regards to Chad, I think there was definitely a time and place where a character like him would have been in the source material. Like I said, I drew inspiration from a couple of the characters. So even though Chad inherently wasn't in the source material, I definitely tried to draw as much inspiration as I could from it for my own character, yet adapted to a little bit of more the teen dramas, like live action stuff.
And what's really important to know is like, you're telling this new story that Simon Barry kind of created. So of course it's not going to be a one-to-one, but you are capturing the essence. And I think you all did such a phenomenal job with it. Do you have any upcoming projects that you can share?
I do have an upcoming project that I'm shooting in 2 weeks. I don't know how much I'm allowed to share about it. So, what I will say is it's with one of my all time favorite directors. I've worked with him 3 times in the past. If you can go through my IMDb or Instagram discography, you can see what it is. I'm very excited. I'm working with some people that I've worked with on previous projects with him in the past and people that are just my personal close friends from the industry. I'm incredibly excited for that to kind of come to fruition and I think that one's going to be really fun. I don't know what I'm allowed to share, so that's all I'm going to share, but if you do your homework, you'll know what I'm talking about. And shout outs to that individual.
Very exciting. I know I was going to say your agent, Carrie, had posted that on social media that you are going to be working with one of your all-time favorite directors. And it's nice to know that you've worked with them before. And so I think what comes with that is a bit of familiarity as well, right? Like both ways and knowing that you're in tune with each other on the same wavelength creatively.
Yeah, it's similar to what Simon did in the sense that he brought that sense of familiarity and familialness to the set so quickly and so efficiently. That's what this director does as well, on top of the fact that he likes to hire people that he's worked with before, or so it seems, with me and my friends that I've worked with on productions with him before. And he's such a fun director to work with, and he's so incredibly talented at his craft. And there's such a sense of like it's almost like we picked up exactly where we left off on the last production when we get to set because he's just truly and authentically himself and he brings such a good vibe to the set that just makes you feel like you're at home.
I can tell you're trying so hard not to name drop. But
I
I'm
know.
excited to see what this project is, and you seem to be looking forward to it. I have one more question for you, our signature question. If you could be any ice cream flavor, which would you be and why?
A vanilla soft serve. I'm just kidding. I would be Moose Tracks. That's a Kawartha Dairy special. I don't know if you guys are watching this from Canada. That is like a mix of vanilla and chocolate and cookies and cream, and then it has like Reese's Pieces peanut butter cup chunks in it. Sometimes those peanut butter cup chunks are filled with caramel too. I think that would be me because I bring together a bunch of different flavors. They're all swirled together. It's kind of a mix match combination, and you kind of don't really know what's going on, but you like it, and you don't know why, but it's just great. And You could have small bites of it, get a little bit of each thing, or you could just go all in all at once and get everything. So I'd say moose tracks would be my flavor of choice.
I was gonna say that actually sounds so on brand for like BMX riding and being outside and in the dirt, which you didn't reference, but I can kind of see the parallels there.
Yes, and I like being outside a lot and playing in the dirt. And guess what you find there? Moose tracks. Hopefully not. Mooses are very aggressive and very dangerous and will trample you. But just the tracks are okay. Just be wary of your surroundings if you see moose tracks.
Vanilla was a very Chad answer, so I'll also give you that.
I think some people would say Chad's a little bit vanilla. Sometimes.
Sometimes, most people. But it was so nice to get to chat with you today. Thank you so much, Dorian, for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun and I hope you all loved the interview. I hope I didn't ramble too much. Sorry about that. Shout outs to the Betcast. Shout outs to Simon Barry. Watch it. It's on Netflix now. Netflix, I love you. Please give us a season two. And have a wonderful day, everybody. Cheers from Chad.
Such good words. And yes, please continue watching Bet on Netflix so we can get this show and this cast more seasons. Of course, catch Dorian as Chad. Season one is out on Netflix, and we will see you next time.